Let's make a quilt. We're going to do it in an afternoon. We've got decisions to make. I have actually cleaned off my big table, and the first project is going to be for a friend of mine who's having a baby. So let me bring in what I have so far, because we've got decisions to make. We are going to start with a panel. It is going to be at least 4 feet by 4 feet, and we're going to quilt it on the embroidery machine. Let's do it. So let me show you the panel that I'm going to start with. Now this may look familiar to you because I have used this panel before. It is adorable. My friend just had a baby on Monday. It's a baby puppy. So she wants an Easter backdrop for pictures with her dogs. Now she doesn't just have this puppy. Of course she has the dog that had the puppy, but she has 4 or 5 dogs. So I guess this makes number 6. So I'm going to turn the camera down here, and we are going to decide how we are going to put this baby quilt. So here you can see the quilt or the panel really well. So I'm going to pull this over, because as long as we can see half of this panel, we're good. Now I have Easter eggs. I would like to fit these in somehow if we can. If not, I may use it as the backing. Now I have a green, and then I've got some of this watercolor, which kind of ties into this watercolor, but I'm not sure that I'm going to love it. I love this fabric. And I love a wood grain, especially one that is a pastel. This looks really good too. And that can bring out the purple in the flowers. Now here's another green. It is a lighter green, but I like the way that it goes with everything. Now these I pulled out. I don't really know that there is enough pink, and even if there was, this is not the same color pink. This is a green. I think it looks okay, but not as good as that. And here is another purple if we wanted to use it. The plan is to add, I think, 2 borders. I think 2 borders will be plenty, maybe 3. And I'm not sure what I want to be on the outside yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be my backing. So let's pull him out. I like this, but not for this quilt. So essentially, I'll set you aside. I also love this watercolors paint splatter look, but I don't think it does anything for the panel, which is our focus. So nope, we'll use it another time. Now I've got this green and this green. This green to me says skinny border because it's a contrast. This is more of what's the word? It's not gonna stand out. It would look great, especially if we put it on the other side of this blue. That is a possibility, because we already have a border going all the way around the outside of this. So still debating on those. And I like the polka dots. All right, so let's get to cutting. All right, so let's go sew the 2 sides on. I have both borders on, so you can see that's the top and the bottom. Now I want to put this egg all the way around. So I believe I'm going to do a 3.5 inch border. Now, yep, that is going to be really cute. Now, on the bottom, I barely used more than one strip. So, let's go ahead and I'll do three strips for the top and the bottom. So next up, since I have my quilt all together, I need to sew the batting and the backing and the top. Now this is going to be an envelope quilt, which is a little different than a regular quilt because there's not going to be any binding. So what I've done is I've found an extra piece of batting. It's a fairly large piece of batting. And I have lined up my quilt on the top. And I need to trim the edges. So this up here is pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and clip it. You can pin it, clip it, whatever you want to do. And I want to smooth it out, make sure there aren't any wrinkles. I could put some 505 spray on. I don't think I'm going to do it because I don't think I need to. We'll find out if I'm wrong. Okay, so I'm going to pull everything over, make sure everything is nice and smooth. And I'm going to trim up this batting. So when you do an envelope type quilt, you do not have to have the batting and the backing larger than your top. I think the first thing I'll do is I'll trim this side over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from this seam. And really this should be, we did 3.5, so actually it should be at about 3.25. We'll do it right here. And then I'll scooch this. Okay. Just going to put it on the 3.5 mark. I've got plenty of batting on the other side, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now let's see. Actually, let's go ahead, smooth our batting out over to the other side and trim that side while we've got the quilt up here. So this side's really nice and straight. Now that did not sound like I cut all the way through for some unknown reason. Okay. Now when you're doing an envelope quilt, there's going to be an opening so you can flip your quilt right side out. But we'll put that at the bottom. Let's pull it over here. Get this edge cut. Now I need to cut the bottom. So there we have the front and our batting. And what we're going to do is on the bottom, I'm going to put 2 clips together where I start, and then 2 clips together where I'm going to stop sewing. I'm going to leave myself plenty of room. All right, and then I'll put some more clips. All right, now we'll work on the backing. I'm not sure how well you can see, but I have a seam that's approximately 1/4 of an inch away from this selvage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the selvage off. Now, in the past, I've made quilts and not trimmed the selvage off, and I haven't had a problem. But, you know, the selvage does dry differently. So I'm just going to play it safe on this and cut off the selvage. All right, so now I have my backing. All right, so I have ironed the backing. So I'm going to put my quilt face down on the backing. Okay. So it's wide enough. It's a little close, but that's all right. Got something under here. All right, and what I can do is I can clip the backing with the rest of the fabric. And it's right sides together because I'm going to be flipping it right side out. So I am ready to close or to sew this together. Now, what I do in between here is I will start at the edge and I will sew inward, and then I will start going around. And then when I come to this side, I will also sew towards the outside edge, and that just makes it close more easily. Let's also look at the front, make sure everything looks okay, which is really not the front, it's the back of the back, which is fine. So here, you see the back. Alrighty, I'm going to go sew it, and then we'll be ready to turn it right side out. All right, I have everything turned right side out. And now I have looked at the different sizes of the hoops and the size of the design that I've chosen. My design is by Designs by Juju. I have decided to use a 9x14 design because my quilt is 54 by 51. And I think that is going to make it easier to not have where my design goes off the edge. And it specifically says in the instructions to go from left to right. I'm using the vertical. You can use vertical or horizontal, but I have a single needle machine, so I'm going to be using vertical. So I don't want to go left to right. I want to start in the middle and go to the right and then go to the left so that all of my fabric isn't pushed one way or the other. So I have loaded my design onto my machine. I have hooped my whole quilt, front and the back and the middle, and I'm going to go put this on my machine. All right, I'm going to get this under the hoop and load it. Now I need to get this part out from under the hoop. I've chosen a thread that's green and blue, so I think it goes with this design. All right, now I have guards. So these are designed by Dime, and essentially it's going to fit under my hoop so that it will hold back my quilt. And then I also have these hooks. These are by Sew Steady, and they attach to a table, and then you can adjust them to hold on to your quilt while you are embroidering. So it keeps the quilt out of the way of the embroidery needle and the machine. Then I'm going to put this guard here. Okay, so that it keeps that back. I think I'm okay on this part. There shouldn't be any drag here. Let's see. See if I can. These are kind of hard to maneuver, but you know, it's not awful by any stretch. It's been a while since I've used them, so that doesn't help either. Okay, and then I can have one more over on this side. So I'm gonna go to embroidery. It's gonna center itself. So I want to see exactly where my design is. So here I can make sure. Whoop, nope, that didn't work out so well. Okay, that's okay. Okay. Okay, now let me pull my thread. Okay, now let's see if this works better. Okay. So I can cut my thread. And there we go. Okay, so it is done with the design. I've got the last stitch on the design. I have the first stitch, or the placement of the first stitch on the design. So I've put my needle down. Now I want to straighten my quilt because I want my design to start there. Right now, I have a line on my quilt that will help me. So I'm going to put the hoop down. Now I need to move this down. I want to kind of straighten this out. Okay. Then I want to come around to this side and make sure that the line that I followed on the first hooping is about where it was. So I think I need to pull it down just a little bit. Okay, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. We just want it to be close. Okay. These puppies are adorable. Okay, so here, and it doesn't have to be super tight. Just want it, decent. Now I can look on the back of my quilt and make sure that my stitching looks good. And I think it does. It looks very nice, as a matter of fact. Okay, so I'm going to put this back in the hook. Need my guard back. There's not that much over to the edge, but there's a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to take my needle up. I'm going to pull my thread. Then I'm going to put my needle down, needle up. Again, it is not perfect, but it is so close that no one is ever going to know. And then I'm going to hit go. Because I don't always follow the rules, there are some spots on my quilt that aren't really fully quilted. So I am putting on the stitch regulator foot on my machine, and I'm going to just do a little bit of stippling. And actually I can start where this one stitch stopped, just to add, well, let me do this, just to add some stitches here so that it doesn't look blank, because according to Angela Walters, as long as you fill it in, it's all good. So there are these swirlies that are on, like here, that are on the quilt, and I'm going to just add some more. And I can also use my little clips to help me with drag when I am doing this without the embroidery machine. Okay, so what I did is I pulled up my thread, because that's what you do. I have on gloves because my hands are slick and I find it easier to move the quilt around when I have gloves on. And I'm just going to stay in this area, and then I will be doing a top stitch around the whole quilt when I've filled in the little spaces that need some help. Now that is not the only space, so that is the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my needle up, I'm going to lift my foot up, I'm going to pull the thread, and then I'm going to put my needle back down where it was, then I'm going to lift my needle again, and that pulls up, and I don't have you on the right side. Let me get my fingers. So that pulls up my bobbin thread, and it knots. So right here I've got my bobbin thread and the thread from my stitching, and I can just cut right here, and it's lock stitched. Okay, so let's go to another spot where I want to put some stitching. So now I am back to my regular stitching, and I'm just going to do a top stitch all the way around. So today we got to work on a little bit of everything. And here is the finished quilt. It is so cute. And I can't wait until she washes it. And I'm also going to try and get a picture of that new puppy who's going to get to use this as a backdrop for his first Easter picture. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Eat some chocolate and be kind to everyone. Until next time, bye.